Unforgettable moments from a wedding that almost ended in chaos. As I stood on the steps of the grand old church, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in my stomach. The sun was shining brightly, casting a warm glow over the crowd of guests milling about. I had officiated many weddings before, but something about this particular day felt off. Perhaps it was the tension in the air or the way the bride's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Little did I know that this wedding would soon become one of the most unforgettable and chaotic experiences of my life. The couple, Jake and Emily, had seemed so in love when we first met. They were full of excitement and optimism, their plans for the future bright and hopeful. As their wedding officiant, I had guided them through the process of creating a meaningful ceremony that reflected their personalities. Emily had been a dream client, pouring her heart into every detail, while Jake had a laid-back demeanor that made working with him a breeze. I never could have anticipated the storm brewing just beneath the surface. The ceremony began, and I felt a sense of calm wash over me as I took my place at the altar. I looked out at the gathering of friends and family, a mix of smiling faces and solemn expressions. The music started, and Emily made her entrance, looking stunning in her flowing white gown. The guests erupted in applause, and I felt the energy in the air shift. But as she approached the altar, I noticed a flicker of something in her eyes, a hint of fear or doubt that made me question whether she truly wanted to go through with this. As I began to officiate the ceremony, I tried to push aside my concerns. I delivered the opening remarks, speaking about love, commitment, and the journey ahead. The couple exchanged their vows, and despite the unease gnawing at me, it was a beautiful moment. But just as I was about to pronounce them husband and wife, I heard a commotion from the back of the church. A loud crash echoed through the air as the doors swung open. A figure stumbled in, breathless and disheveled. My heart sank as I recognized him, Emily's ex-boyfriend, Mark. He had been a part of her life for years before Jake came into the picture, and their breakup had been anything but amicable. Mark's eyes darted around the room, locking onto Emily, and I could see the panic etched across her face. "Stop the wedding," he shouted, his voice reverberating through the church. The guests gasped in shock, and I felt the tension in the room skyrocket. "Mark, please," Emily called out, her voice shaky. "You need to leave." But Mark was undeterred. "You can't do this. We belong together," he insisted, stepping closer to the altar, his desperation palpable. I felt the atmosphere shift as guests exchanged bewildered glances. Jake stood frozen beside Emily, confusion and anger battling for dominance on his face. The officiant in me knew I had to regain control of the situation, but the chaos unfolding felt like a scene from a bad movie. "Mark, this is not the time or place," I said, trying to sound authoritative. "You need to respect their decision." He laughed bitterly, shaking his head. "Respect? You think I could just stand by and watch her marry someone else?" His eyes flicked back to Emily, filled with a mix of sorrow and anger. "You know, we had something real." "Emily," the guests murmured among themselves, the tension escalating to an unbearable level. Emily looked like she was about to break down. Jake stepped forward, his fists clenched at his sides, clearly struggling to contain his rage. "Get out," he shouted, his voice shaking with emotion. "You have no right to be here." Mark sneered, taking another step toward Emily. "She deserves to be with someone who really cares about her, not some guy who just swept in after I left." In that moment, everything spiraled out of control. Jake lunged at Mark, fists raised, and I knew I had to intervene before this turned into a full-blown brawl. I stepped between them, raising my hands in a gesture of peace. "Let's take a step back here," I urged, trying to maintain some semblance of order. "This is a wedding, not a battleground." The room fell silent as I looked back and forth between the two men, their emotions hanging in the air like a thick fog. I turned to Emily, whose eyes were filled with tears. "What do you want to do, Emily?" I asked gently, hoping to guide her through the chaos. With a trembling breath, she straightened her shoulders. "I want to marry Jake," she declared, her voice steady despite the turmoil surrounding us. "Mark, you need to go. I'm done with the past." Mark's face twisted in disbelief as he processed her words. "You don't mean that," he shouted, but the defiance in Emily's eyes silenced him. With that declaration, I felt a shift in the atmosphere. The crowd started to rally behind Emily, and I could sense a wave of support for her decision. "Let's refocus," I said, trying to re-establish order. "If everyone is ready, we can continue with the ceremony." Mark, realizing he was losing the battle, backed away. His shoulders slumped in defeat. "You'll regret this," he muttered before turning and storming out of the church. The tension in the air dissipated slightly, replaced by a collective sigh of relief. I turned back to Emily and Jake, who stood hand in hand, the weight of the world on their shoulders. "Are you both ready to proceed?" I asked, hoping to restore some sense of normalcy. They exchanged a glance, a silent agreement passing between them. "Yes," Emily replied, her voice steadier now. "We want to go on." As we continued the ceremony, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I guided them through the vows once more, and this time, the words resonated with a deeper meaning. The guests were fully engaged, and the energy shifted to one of support and celebration. The moment Jake and Emily exchanged rings, and I pronounced them husband and wife, the crowd erupted in applause. They kissed, and it was as if the storm that had threatened to tear them apart had transformed into a powerful bond. As the reception began, I took a moment to breathe, processing the whirlwind of emotions that had unfolded. I watched as Jake and Emily embraced their families and friends, sharing laughter and joy after the chaos that had just transpired. It was a testament to their strength and commitment, a reminder that love can withstand even the most unexpected challenges. But the drama wasn't over yet. Later that evening, as the party was in full swing, I noticed Mark lurking outside the venue. My instincts kicked in, and I approached him cautiously, determined to understand his perspective. "Mark, this isn't your moment," I said, keeping my tone firm but calm. "You need to respect their decision and let them move on." He looked at me, his eyes filled with frustration. "You don't know the whole story," he replied, his voice low. "Emily and I have a history. She's making a mistake." "Maybe," I acknowledged, "but it's her choice to make. You need to step back and let her live her life." He stood there for a moment, and I could see the internal battle raging within him. Finally, he sighed, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "I just wanted her to know how I felt," he admitted, sounding lost. "Sometimes, we have to let go, even when it's hard." I said gently, hoping to offer some wisdom. "She's chosen her path, and you need to respect that." As I walked away, I felt a mix of emotions swirling within me. I had seen the power of love and the pain of loss in the same evening. It was a reminder that life, with all its unpredictability, often held profound lessons within its chaos. As the night wore on, I watched Jake and Emily dance together, lost in their own world, and I felt a sense of fulfillment. I had been a part of something beautiful, something that had almost been derailed by the unexpected. The next few weeks flew by, and I found myself reflecting on that wedding. The drama, the emotions, and the sheer unpredictability had been overwhelming. But it was also a reminder of why I loved being an officiant. Each wedding told a story, a unique tapestry of love, commitment, and the challenges that life often throws our way. I continued officiating weddings, each one bringing its own surprises and heartwarming moments. However, nothing could compare to the lessons learned from Jake and Emily's day, the resilience of love, and the importance of embracing life's twists and turns. As I prepared for the next wedding, I realized that I wasn't just a bystander in these moments. I was a part of the stories that unfolded. And as I stood before the next couple, ready to guide them through their vows, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Each one was a new chapter, and I was grateful to be a part of their journey.